Jenny.
Now we're
Okay.
good.
All right, thank you everyone. Welcome to our presentation by Jayde Teutsch on colorblind and merit-based, a review of executive orders on racial policy. Jayde is the daughter of Barb and James Teutsch from West Point, Nebraska. She's majoring in political science and journalism. She has been a fantastic contributor to the Wayne Stater for the last 3.5 years, serving as the editor this year. And then this year she was also awarded the 2025 Political Science Outstanding Student Award. So I just want to put out those honors before I turn the floor over to her. So Jayde, the floor is yours now.
Thanks. Hello, everybody. So this is the title of my paper, Colorblind and Merit-Based, a review of executive orders' impact on racial policy. Just to get started, I'll give you a little bit of background on executive orders. American presidents have been issuing executive orders on racial and ethnic policies since Washington's presidency, even though this power isn't listed in the Constitution. Public opinion is a very malleable entity that executive orders thrive off of, since this power is undefined. Executive orders, or as I'll refer to them as EOs throughout this presentation, they're defined by the American Bar Association as a written and published directive from the president that manages the federal government's operations. These actions don't need approval from Congress, though legislation may be passed to make it difficult for an EO to be carried out, and only a sitting president can overturn an order. So what is the purpose of issuing an executive order in the first place? This power has been used for a variety of reasons, such as establishing or suspending policies and departments, kind of mending program funding, or balancing powers or disproportional rights. Except for Ford, every president has enacted at least one executive order that included language prohibiting racial discrimination. And recent presidencies have used their EOs to kind of deal with racial discriminations more than previous presidencies, so that power has been very focused on. Some of the orders that have been enacted since Truman have been more direct and attempted to alleviate racial disparities, while others kind of briefly mentioned an intolerance for prejudice when just discussing the policies that could be enacted by executive orders. So why did I choose executive orders as my paper topic? I was very interested in presidents having such a strong power to address policies, but particularly when using executive orders. Within the two most recent presidencies, so Trump's second term and Biden's first and only term, executive orders have been used to alter racial policies, and public opinion has played a very strong role in that. I decided to write my paper because I was really interested in learning more about the impact presidents could have when using executive orders. So I had two main goals when writing. The first was investigating the administrations from 2017 to 2025 to kind of look at the content and the language used when issuing executive orders. And the second goal was highlighting how different presidents have varying methods of alleviating or exacerbating disparities that stem from the back and forth of different presidencies having different goals. So this is a chart that highlights while people of color are less likely to have had contact with police, they disproportionately experience the use of force from police. So a larger population of the US is white, but a larger population of Black Americans are likely to experience force even though they're less likely to have had contact. So it's important to note that several issues are unequal when affecting people of color, such as higher rates of chronic disease and premature death, housing discrimination, and like showcased here, high imprisonment rates. All of these issues kind of coincide with one another because housing discrimination can lead to health issues and poverty can lead to incarceration, and it all just kind of ties in together. Executive orders could drastically alleviate these disparities and other issues. So the power of issuing executive orders has been utilized more than ever, specifically when dealing with racial policy within the last 3 presidencies. A few policy areas that Trump's administrations have dealt with include immigration, workplace equality, and education. And this trend of having very racially focused executive orders continued into his second presidency. He's already issued over 130 executive orders, many of which touch on racial policy and social rights movements. This This chart here is the number of executive orders that have been issued since Truman was in office. And you can see here that before Trump's first term was over, he had issued more executive orders than Obama's 2 terms combined. This chart showcases how freely presidents can use executive orders and how often they do use this power that they have. While executive orders can only be replaced or modified by presidents, there's still influence from the other branches. One of the first times that an outside entity handled an executive order was the Farmer versus Philadelphia Electric Co. case, which was, this case dealt with a worker who was hurt on the job and he was put kind of on like light work while he was working throughout the day. And he was put back to normal work quite quickly, and he claimed that his employer was discriminating against him because of his race, because he claimed that his white his white coworkers were left on kind of light work much longer than he was. So he was saying that like work discrimination EOs were not being followed. The U.S. Court of Appeals, though, ruled that because he made a complaint against a corporate employer rather than a governmental authority, the case could be reviewed under the Constitution. And this decision not to meddle with this executive order stems from the executive orders not being listed in the Constitution. Checks and balances still exist, though, even though that particular case wasn't handled by the courts. The Supreme Court has, a first example is the Supreme Court putting a halt on Trump's executive order to eliminate birthright citizenship, which is granted under the